hello, and welcome back to another amazing episode of ReikiCafe Radio. I am so honored and excited to be joined today by Rickie Merrill Freedman, one of my very dear Reiki friends who I actually got the opportunity to meet in person for the first time back in May, which was an incredible experience, and it was so lovely to be in her energy. But Rickie Freedman is a Reiki master and teacher, a certified medical Reiki practitioner, certified Reiki sound practitioner, and Reiki voice instructor, as well as a certified holistic wellness coach. She is an international speaker and the author of Reiki Rickie Shares ReikiKids and Radiating Our Reiki Light, which we'll talk about today. Her focus is the integration of complementary wellness with traditional healthcare, and her specialty is Reiki by Rickie, gentle touch, deep healing. Her sessions may also include intuitive personal growth guidance, Indian head massage, chakra foot massage, Reiki sound, and Reiki voice. In addition to pain and stress management, Rickie's expertise includes working with addictive behaviors, ReikiKids, elder adults, and terminally ill clients. So as you can hear, Rickie is just a wealth of information and knowledge and loves mixing modalities just like we do here at Reiki Cafe University. And so I am so honored and excited to get to share her Reiki voice on our podcast today. So welcome, Rickie.
Thank you so much. I am honored to be here and excited to chat and reconnect with you and, double the Reiki love.
Yes. I love your energy because it's just every time I see you, it just immediate smile and joy. You are just
Aw.
such a light. And I'm excited for the listeners to get to experience that. But one of the questions that I love to start these interviews with, because I think it gives us a really nice basis of knowing who you are, where you came from, and why you're here with us today, is a really
Mhm.
general question of how did you get to where you are today? What's your Reiki story, maybe the Spark Notes version, but what was your Reiki
Yes, and
story?
I was
Yeah.
gonna, because of course the first thing that comes to my mind is I'm 67 years old. This is a long story. So I'll focus on the facts related to the Reiki. So I was born and raised in Philadelphia, and a girl named Rickie. And as I now know, that was a wake-up call to my purpose, because Rickie and Reiki are very close, as you can hear, and it's wonderful from a branding perspective, of course, Reiki by Rickie. So I became a physical therapist, which is another form of hands-on healing. I loved it because I love people and connection and relationships over time. And I got to work with people in that way through my physical therapy work. I moved from big city Philadelphia to small town Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, where Bucknell University is, rural conservative college town. And friends of mine, husband and wife, asked me to babysit for their son while they took a Reiki 1 class. I never heard of Reiki. I was just doing them a favor. That's why these stories are fun, isn't it? And so they came home and practiced on me. And I happened to be going through my divorce at the time, which was a word that I could barely get out of my throat. It still kind of sticks a little bit. And so I had been holding in a lot of emotions for a very long time. And I had a profound response to the Reiki and a huge detox afterwards. And so I initially took my first Reiki 1 class for my own personal emotional healing. And of course, Reiki 1 is all about self-healing. So that was a perfect way to start. I honestly thought every Reiki class I took would be as far as I'd want to or need to go because I loved it and I could feel it so much right from day one in the class. But when something is meant for you, you're literally kind of drawn along each step of the way. And so I took my time on my Reiki path. I took about 9 months between Reiki 1 and 2 because I really like to use it and let it all process and integrate. And then actually a couple years until I moved forward to the Reiki Master and eventually the Master Teacher level. I honestly didn't think I would teach, which is so laughable to me now because it's clearly part of my mission and purpose in the world. But you have to realize this was before computers. This was when you typed on a typewriter with 2 fingers. And the thought of creating a manual felt so daunting to me. I only knew that I couldn't just give someone else's manual. It needed to be my energy and every word that I resonated with. Somehow or other, I did it. My first iteration wasn't my final iteration, that's for sure. But um, so I basically was sharing physical therapy at a nursing home, and one of the nurses that I worked with decided she was going to open a little wellness center in town. And I had been sharing Reiki in my home, but just for people I knew and coworkers and such. And I accepted her offer to go into that space, which she called Lavender Heart, which was the start of all the purple, right? And my practice grew beyond my connections. People from the community were coming, and guess what? Reiki was taking off more than anything else there. And I know it's because I love this work so much. And when I share about it, it just radiates, and people feel that, and they were very attracted to it. It got so busy so quick that I ultimately had to make the decision of how to manage my physical therapy practice. So I left my full-time PT job, which was a really big deal at that time because I had to pay for my own health insurance. There was no marketplace or anything like that. And I did what they call PRN physical therapy. Places would call me as they needed me. So I worked that around my growing Reiki client schedule. The woman who started Lavender Heart, she decided this is going great for you, meaning me. She says, but I'm going back to nursing. And so either it was going to fold or I was going to take it over. And I never in a million years considered myself a business person. I'm the service girl, and that's still the way I see all this. But I also have learned that my job in all of this is to be willing to listen and say yes. And the more it makes me squirm in my seat, the absolute more I know I need to do it, right? So I took over Lavender Heart, no on the job training. She just left, and I continued to grow my Reiki practice. The building had a fire. I had to move out for a while, and I'm trying to shorten the story, but it's quite a story. So eventually I got my own space in Lewisburg, continued to grow that practice until I was clearly and intuitively guided that I needed to come to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where I am now. I didn't want to go. My left logical brain said, why? You love it here. You're so connected with all your clients. But again, it was what was meant to be for me. So finally, I threw the oars in the water and I surrendered. And literally, the waters parted. Everything opened up and aligned, right? Because my mindset aligned. And I moved to Harrisburg. The instant I got there, I got a lightning bolt intuition that said, it's time to let go of the security blanket, which was my physical therapy work, and really do this. So I moved to a brand new area, knowing one person. No one here knew or talked about Reiki. And I surrendered. And I knew with every fiber of my being this was going to work because I trusted the source. So I went into someone else's practice initially for a little while. I took my Reiki table everywhere they would let me, every lunch and learn, wellness event, health fair, anytime I could get people on the table to feel this work, because it's always about the experience. And my practice grew faster than I could possibly have planned or imagined. I've got a lot of help and support in all this, if you know what I mean, and I know you do. And so got the neck about 4.5 years later. I had a busy full-time practice, and the universe said, it's time to get out of there, and created a rift in that practice so it would make it easier for me to leave, and the ultimate wisdom. And I created and totally used the energetic laws of attraction to find and manifest and create this beautiful space I'm sitting in now. Harrisburg's first and Reiki center, basically. And this is 11 plus years ago now, which is pretty darn amazing. And yeah, this has been my full-time work. I see about 5 clients every day. I manage the space. I have about 11 Reiki space practitioners that have all received Reiki training with me, can offer work here. After COVID, we opened our newest room called Enlighten, and that's a collaborative, cooperative effort to bring healers from all over the region to be able to share their gifts. And of course, the book was launched this past 11/11. So I'm a busy girl and I love every minute of it. It's, it's not what I do, it's who I am and what I'm meant to be sharing. And, how this is going to move forwards, I'm not even going to profess to know. But I trust the path and the journey and my guidance. And here we are.
And here
Whew,
we
that
are.
was a lot to condense in a breath.
I love hearing the story of your Reiki journey because it's so clear that in each and every moment, even if your mind was resisting, even if maybe there was some anxiety, even if those what ifs came in, it was always going back to, where is Reiki taking me? What's that guidance telling me? And that's something that I think I hear a lot from a lot of Reiki practitioners is either they followed Reiki, they've become a practitioner and they're starting their business and it's not happening the way they want it to. Like I can imagine some Reiki practitioners listening to this and going, "Oh, her business was going so well, why isn't mine?" Or they start following Reiki, they feel that initial nudge, and then they kind of lose that voice. They lose that guidance and they start feeling lost in feeling like they don't know which direction to go. I'm curious, with your connection that you have that's so strong to that guidance, what would you say to those Reiki practitioners who are maybe feeling a little bit lost in that?
Right. So there's a couple things, and I'm going to say the same thing I would say to any of my mentorship students when they first come to me. Number one, are you doing your self Reiki every day? What is your grounding practice, right? Because a lot of Reiki practitioners are very connected and intuitive, but they're not so much with the grounding. And the grounding is what's going to allow you to step forward with consistency, right? I'm a very grounded person, and I bring this work to all audiences, many traditional businesses, in a very grounded way that they can relate to and understand. Are you practicing your breath work and meditation to build and radiate your light? Because people are going to feel you more than they're going to hear your words, right? And so sensitive people need to be doing these practices every day because you need to be living and radiating Reiki to attract that to yourself. Right? So it's always back to the basics. Then sometimes we can talk about some of the logistics, but people jump to the logistics, like how can I advertise and, how can I promote myself? Well, you need to find the way that's unique and relates to how you are in the world. I'm very comfortable going to networking meetings with lots and lots of people and ultimately becoming speakers at them because I love that. And that was one of my goals when I first moved to the area, but not everyone is. Maybe you're more comfortable meeting someone one-on-one and taking them out for coffee. But the thing is, you need to be consistent, right? If I went to a networking meeting now and then and sometimes, I radiated Reiki and sometimes, I was just all stressed out, right? You need to be living and breathing this work. Of course, Reiki is a path of integrity, and we're all going to go through stuff now and then. And people can see how you work through your stuff in a healthy and balanced way, which is not to vomit your stuff out on Facebook, right? I'm very conscious, of every word, thought, emotion, and attitude carrying Reiki and how that presents to the world. That really matters to me. So that's why all the Reiki space practitioners here have all received Reiki training with me. I mean, the source is the source, right? It's not that my Reiki is bigger, better, more, but we share a unified attitude and philosophy that represents Reiki, that represents Reiki space and me as well, right? Because I have my own philosophies and way of being in the world.
And that's so beautiful, that idea of Reiki always being almost like the foundation of everything, every word, every thought, every action being infused with and guided by Reiki. And I'm curious in that you said something that I loved, this idea of Reiki as a path of integrity. I love that phrase. And I'm so curious, when you were on this path, you mentioned a couple times there were times where your mind just didn't want to do it, where you were just not happy with where Reiki was taking you. What did you do in those moments to help reconnect to? You had said something about shifting your mindset. What did you do in those moments to honor the emotions that were coming up and the feelings your mind had, but still redirect yourself to be aligned with what needed to happen next?
Right. And the beautiful thing in energy world is all those things can coexist at the same time, right? So the humanness of Rickie, had her own thoughts, and especially with a little girl inside who, every now and then comes out to play and kicks and stomps and says, "I don't want to." And I call that my emotional pity party. But it happens less and less. And I don't stay there very long because it does not feel very good, right? And so, you kind of take that deep breath, do your work, bring yourself back, breath by breath, sometimes moment by moment, heartbeat by heartbeat. The Reiki healing principles say just for today, but I say in stressful times, in this moment, I choose, right? Because it's literally moment by moment bringing yourself back. Because if not only feels so much better to be in alignment and come back to your place of inner peace, it is the only place where you can be a healing presence from, whether it's for your own self or, sharing with whatever work, in whatever way you choose to share. Um, that particular story that I shared, what happened was there was a massage therapy practice in my area. And you can hear how my mindset wasn't quite aligned yet because I said to her, I put my house on the market, and this was in 2008 during that economy, right, where nothing was moving and such. So I was going through the motions, but I wasn't aligned. And I said to this massage therapist, hear the if word, if I move to Harrisburg, it's only an hour and 15 minutes away. Would I be able to use a space in your practice on the weekends to share Reiki with my clients? And she said, I would love that. I have a space available from Thursday to Monday. Well, all of a sudden, click. I didn't have to give up anything. I didn't have to give up my Reiki practice and my connection with my clients. I could have it all, right? Managing the business was never what was my first priority. So as soon as I aligned my mindset, realized I wasn't giving up anything, I could come as often as I want on the weekends and still see my current clients, right? Then all of a sudden, my house was the only one in the neighborhood that sold. I found a place to live in Harrisburg. I found a place to practice, right? And, like I said, the waters just, it's like the waters parted because, yes, yay, she's finally saying yes. And my whole being was aligned with that yes. And instantaneously, there was zero fear, total trust, right? Fear will block the flow. So, that's what happened for me. And when I first moved to Harrisburg, because no one knew me here, I ran back to Lewisburg every other weekend and had Reiki marathon from Thursday to Monday with all my clients because they loved it. And then gradually, I had to go less and less often. And I was going once every 2 months. And then my mom got sick, and that was too many balls to juggle. I had to let that go. But I'm still connected there. I still have, clients who are friends. And actually, I'm going to share Reiki at a lavender festival in that area coming up the end of the month. So I'm hoping to see some of my clients from that area. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of stories like that about just realigning your mindset. And once you are a lot, like you said with Reiki, and let go of the fear and trust the source and take what I call inspired action, right? It's one thing to listen and tune in and get the guidance. It's a whole nother thing to step it forwards in the world, right? That inspired action. And stay at it, stay consistent, trust in the process. And the universe knows when you're ready for more. And the universe knows when you need a little break and you might be working a little too much, speaking to my own self sometimes, right? Because Reiki's about balance and so is life.
Mm.
Yeah.
I have a teacher who always reminds me the universe is so efficient. It will take you exactly where you need to go if you let it, if you just let it move. It's going to take
Right.
you where you need to go. And so I love that you brought up this idea of alignment because that's actually something that we're talking about a lot on the podcast this month. And so I'd
Oh.
love to know for you, what does alignment mean for you and how does it look in your daily life? How do you know that you're in alignment for yourself?
Well, you know by how you feel, right? And you know by how life is all around you, because it's always a reflection. What you radiate is what you attract. And when the doors are opening and you can continue to step forwards, then you know. And that takes a daily practice. I can't stress that enough, right? Even with how many years I've been doing this, I still need to do my own work. Even though, yes, Reiki flows through me while I share with my clients, I still need to not only do myself Reiki, but I need to get on other people's Reiki tables because that's a different experience to keep myself in balance and at my optimal wellness, within this human experience, because we all go through stuff. It just because we're on this path doesn't mean we don't have those things. We do, but we recognize it sooner. We bring ourselves back a little quicker. We know how to look a little deeper into the underlying mental, emotional, stress related source of whatever we're experiencing so that we can get deeper and truer healing. Alignment to me is when your words, your thoughts, and your actions match each other, not just when you're in your Reiki center, not just when you're sharing your Reiki session, but in every area of your life. I just got married a year and a half ago,
Congratulations.
but I've been with my husband several years now. And a couple of years after we were together, I said to him, "So what have you learned about me?" Right? 'Cause from the initial encounters and what we shared with each other. And that's exactly what he said. He said, "You're this everywhere. It's not just, you're this at home, you're this with your family." And there was no greater compliment he could have given me because integrity is my highest value. I don't do Reiki. I don't just share Reiki. I want to be and live Reiki every step of the way because it is who we are and what we're all made of and connected by. It's so natural, but we all need reminders from each other sometimes, don't we?
Yes. Yes. And I think that's something that I love your book, Radiating Our Reiki Light, for is how beautifully it takes all of these stories and almost case studies, I want to say, of these people who experience, I mean, the range of the human experience, right? They're grieving or they're
Mm.
frustrated or they're lost or they're all these things. And then they find Reiki and it's the
Or
story,
Reiki finds them, right?
or Reiki finds them, right? And it's that story of coming back into alignment when we open ourselves up to Reiki and when Reiki calls us and we listen. And so I'd love to talk a little bit about that book and how it came to be and why it's
Yeah.
been so
Now
important.
you have the manuscript, but you don't have the actual physical book, do you? I
No.
would just want to hold it up so everybody can see it. It's called Radiating Our Reiki Light, Reiki Healing Through Real Stories from Clients, Students, Practitioners, and Teachers. And so I love this because it's very unique. There's lots of books about Reiki on Amazon, of course, and written by other Reiki masters, and they all bring value. But this is not written by professional writers, right? And it's not, this is what Reiki is, this is what Reiki can do, this is the science. This is warm, heartfelt, personal stories of how Reiki has changed, transformed, and sometimes actually saved people's lives. So you learn about all that from reading these stories. So I collected all the stories first, and they're from all over the United States, not just my clients and students, and even one in Canada. And then we divided them into chapters based on the similar topics. And we have 17 different chapters, all different aspects of Reiki, Reiki and relationships, Reiki and kids, Reiki and fertility, Reiki and animals, Reiki and grief, on and on, 17 different topics. And then I shared my story and philosophies and teaching in the beginning of each of those chapters. So it's really, really a big deal to me because I never considered myself a professional writer, although I did, as you know, create my Reiki Kids manual, and that came out during COVID. And I'm very, very proud of that too. It's very unique. But, that this is my baby. And yeah, I want to get it out to the world. That's part of the reason why I'm doing this and other podcasts. We each have our own audiences, and I want to spread this far and wide. It is on Amazon, so people can get it there. And one thing you can really do for us if you want to, if you love the book, is leave us an Amazon review. The way Amazon works, you have to get at least 50 reviews so that they can start to help. I think we're up to like 30 and they're all 5 stars. So that's awesome. And yeah, I think, it's been really meaningful. My son read this book and he thought he was reading it because, it's really cool that mom put out a book. Um, that my son's name is Ron, his brother's name is Ryan, and Ryan passed when he was 20 years old. Ryan was who inspired me to create the Reiki Kids coloring book when I went to Sedona one year. And so Ron went right to the chapter on Reiki and grief. And it so impacted him. It was so meaningful. And he put his own review unsolicited on Amazon and wrote, "Every chapter is like receiving a mini Reiki session." And that really touched my heart because my intention is that everyone who touches this book, can feel the Reiki flowing through. And actually, just about a month ago, he took his Reiki 1 class with me. And that felt so meaningful. And he was so surprised how much he was able to feel it right away. He's very sensitive. And I'm really hoping that maybe he'll be in the next book because I hope it helps him a lot in whatever way is meant for him. So,
That's beautiful. And I think what you said about it being unique, I think is absolutely true. I've read many, many, many Reiki books
yes,
in my
yes,
time,
I'm
and
sure.
I truly think that it's the only book that presents Reiki in the way that you do, with as many stories and as much reach and scope as you do. One of my favorite sayings is healing through solidarity. I really truly believe that we find
Um,
healing when we can hear other people's stories and realize that not only are we not alone, but that there's hope. And I think that that's something that your book does so beautifully is it shows how much hope and healing and potential there is in Reiki and in opening up to that path. And it's just so, so beautifully done. And it's not often that I find a Reiki book that makes me fall in love with Reiki all over again, but yours certainly
Oh,
did.
thank you. That's so meaningful. I know, when I teach Reiki, I always teach in small groups. And part of it is because of, of course, I get to share my story even in a little more detail, and they get to share their stories. And we realize, the details are different, but we all go through this kind of stuff. We all get to these choice points in our life. Am I ready? Am I worthy? Is it time? Right? So it's helpful to hear how other people have navigated that. Yeah.
And something that you've referenced a few times during this conversation is your ReikiKids manual and coloring book. And I know that it's such a point of joy and pride for you, but I love it as well because I think it is such a beautiful thing to be able to introduce kids to Reiki in such a beautiful way that opens them up to it from the beginning. Because I think all of us, when we're on our Reiki journeys, have that thought of, wouldn't it have been amazing if I had had this from the start? And so I'd love if you could talk a little bit about your ReikiKids items.
Yeah, so I've been teaching Reiki to kids for years, all ages, right? I've taught as young as 5. That's the youngest, I've had in a traditional class setting, right? And 5, I usually have a parent with them because it's a long 10 to 3, and for a 5-year-old, that's a long day. My Reiki kids get everything that the grown-ups get, right? But it's just in child-friendly language. And so this book is actually a coloring activity book. Let me just show you a couple of the pages here. Let me find Mikhail Usui on the mountain because I love that picture. Can you see that?
Yes. Oh, I love
And so there's activities on every page, so that they can, be coloring and be a little busy while we're still listening and paying attention. But yeah, they learn everything. They feel their energy and feel each other's energy and the energy of the group. So they learn all about energy because we don't talk about that in our culture, right? But it's so natural. And kids get this right away. I mean, they don't have the filters and resistances that the adults have developed just because of lack of knowledge and their life experiences. But kids can feel this. They get it right away. They learn their self-healing and a little bit about meditation. They receive their Reiki 1 attunement exactly the same way I share it with the grown-ups, which is one by one, right? And by the end of the day, we're all practicing on each other. I have occasionally even had a couple animals in so that they could practice animal Reiki, but we always have them practice with the plants and sometimes with crystals so they can just feel the energy of different things, a little bit of sound healing. It's very active and interactive. And to me, the essence of Reiki in general is about being your true self in the world and living this. I mean, that's the Reiki path. And so my Reiki Kids class is helping them to learn who they are and giving them permission to be their true selves. And so to a kid, those Reiki healing principles as we share them as adults are not going to be meaningful. I have a hard enough time getting the adults to pay attention to it. So I created, and you got to hear this at the Reiki retreat, the Reiki Healing Principles Kids song. So it's, meaningful to kids, and there's hand motions to it all. And so it's very active. And we practiced it several times in class. And then when the parents come at the end of the day, we put on a little concert for them. And I wanted to kind of be like a little earworm for them because it's very simple. I actually shared that song. My daddy passed now, but he was 91 at the time, and he was living in an assisted living facility. And he said, "You should." And I was having him do he's kind of wheelchair bound, but he could do all the little hand motions. And he said, "You should teach this to everyone here." So I find that the grown-ups like it just as much as the kids, and it's an easy way to, easier way to remember those Reiki healing principles, which to me should be in the forefront of Reiki. It's the essence of it for me. So yeah, we have fun. It is a lot of energy to share Reiki with kids and a lot of kind of bringing them back into the focus, right? But the coloring book is so awesome because it takes you through the class in the order, page by page. Any teacher or parent could follow along. I share a virtual workshop when I'm requested of how to use the coloring book to share Reiki with kids. Now, of course, parents can't do the attunements, only other Reiki teachers can, but we already all are this, right? It's very, very natural, and it's great to get kids thinking along these lines. And they're our hope for the future, like you said. And a lot of sensitive kids are coming into the world, and if they could learn how to manage their energy, the world's going to be a better place moving forwards. And it's one by one, increasing exponentially as energy does.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And one thing that I love that you've shared throughout, and you can see it in that ReikiKids song that you made, is the importance of using our voice when it comes to Reiki. Your Reiki
Mm.
practice is so voice oriented. And while we were at the Reiki retreat earlier in May, you shared with us your Reiki voice teachings, which I think is such a unique way of interacting with Reiki. So I'd love if you could tell us a little bit about Reiki voice and why it's so important for our Reiki practices.
Yeah, it is unique. And um, it's a perfect fit for me because I have been a natural hummer and singer since I was a young girl. I mean, I would be doing this in class and not realize it. And I still do it without, until somebody points it out to me. I'm doing that almost constantly. And sometimes it's an actual song that brings me information, which is very interesting too. It's one of the way that spirit guides me and communicates with me. So, Reiki voice is using the vibrations of our voice, humming, toning, chanting. Sometimes it may be a little singing, but this is not about having a pretty singing voice. This is strictly for healing, right? What I love about this class, as I've shared it more and more, besides the fact that it's very unique and it blends perfectly with Reiki, we integrate the two, is it is empowering people to use their voices. And that was a natural side effect of this that I wasn't fully anticipating how powerful that piece is. Everyone comes in a little hesitant, and by the end of the day, they're comfortable, and they love that about it. And, especially this is not just for women. I mean, I teach mixed classes, but women through the course of history, my age and older and beyond, were not encouraged to speak their truth fully, right? They were not allowed to express anger in any kind of a way. And although it's easier for you younger ones now than it used to be, we still carry some of this in our DNA. So empowering people with confidence to be able to use their voices in a very gradual, safe, and comfortable environment is really meaningful beyond just the techniques. And so I'm really happy about this, and it's been a nice addition to my work. The essence of everything that I share is the Reiki, as you know, right? And it's very important to me that people understand what the Reiki is as far as Reiki sessions all by itself. I'm very transparent about that. And then if they choose, we can blend in some of these other things. But Reiki's so powerful on its own. So that's the essence of my practice.
Our conversation today has taken us on so many different topics and so many different ways of interacting with Reiki. And something that I love to ask everyone who comes on the show
Mm.
is, what is your favorite piece of advice to give to someone just starting out on this journey? And if you could give them a technique or a tool or a couple techniques and tools to use in their daily life, what would those be?
Remember to breathe, right? Your brain listens to your breath and it determines what hormones to secrete based on your breath. So when you're breathing short and shallow, like we do when we're stressed and busy, our brain interprets it as, oh no, Chicken Little, the sky is falling, the sky is falling, and secretes the hormones that set off all the stress responses in your body. You can be in the midst of that same situation and remember and consciously slow and deepen your breath, knowing that you're connecting to the source of the energy and you can bring that into your being with every breath. And your brain says, ah, all is well, and secretes the hormones that stimulate your immune system and your wellness and help you relax. So it becomes easier for you to calm down, even if you're not quite fully there in that moment. So, I think the breath work is a really important part of this. Find yourself a daily grounding practice, whether it's going out and, earthing, taking your shoes off out in out in the grass and just connecting, but do it consciously. We walk and we ground all the time, but when we add our conscious intention, we can connect to that beautiful balancing, grounding energy. And of course, do your self Reiki every day. You are worth it.
Beautiful. Rickie, it has been an honor and a joy to talk with you and share space with you today. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there
Oh,
any last words of wisdom or advice you'd like to share before we sign off?
I will just say how I end every program. I honor the divine in each and all of you. I honor the place in you that is of light, of love, of truth, and of peace. And when you are in that place in you, and I am in that place in me, we are always connected and always one. So have a peaceful day, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing your precious time and energy.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so much,
Isabel.
Rickie. If you want to connect with Rickie, her links to her book, her website, and all of her other amazing offerings will be in the show notes. You can connect with her there. And I'm sure you'll see Rickie on the podcast again in the future.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.